Discover the incredible journey of King David, a miraculous transformation in God's divine plan. In the 3rd year of Jehoiakim, as the sun cast its warm glow over the rolling hills of Bethlehem, young David tended to his father's flock. The soft bleats of sheep echoed around him as he sat beneath the vast sky, strumming his harp and singing melodies of praise to Yahweh. David, the youngest of 8 brothers, stood out to his father, Jesse, not for stature or strength, but for his unwavering faith and diligent care of the sheep. While his brothers were off seeking their fortunes in city life, David found joy in his solitude, seeing the hand of God in every blade of grass and each fluttering bird. Far away in the city, the high priest Samue felt the weight of divine instruction pressing upon his heart. Distressed by King Saul's disobedience, the Lord spoke to Samuel, commanding him to anoint a new king, one who would lead his people with wisdom and courage. The very thought of such a crucial task filled him with trepidation, yet he obeyed. His journey led him to Bethlehem, where he arrived with solemn reverence, a horn of oil at his side, destined to fulfill God's command. As Samuel walked through the town, tension grew thick in the air. The townsfolk murmured as he searched for Jesse's sons, believing that the Lord's chosen one must appear grand and powerful. First came Eliab, the eldest, tall and stately. Yet God whispered to Samuel, "Do not consider his appearance or his height, for I have rejected him." Each brother that followed Shammah, Abinadab was found wanting, as palpable and divine certainty led Samuel's heart. Confusion clouded his brow. "Are these all the sons you have?" he asked, searching for answers. "There is yet the youngest, tending the sheep," Jesse replied hesitantly, as if doubting David's capabilities for such significance. The air grew hushed, a mighty anticipation stilled the atmosphere. Soon, amidst the rustling leaves and calling birds, little David approached, a handful of wildflowers clutched in his hands. Unbeknownst to him, the monumental purpose of heaven awaited him. As he stepped forth, Samuel's heart raced with the weight of God's choice. In that moment, the Lord spoke, "Rise and anoint him. He is the one." In an incredible act of faith, Samuel poured the sacred oil upon David's head, and the Spirit of the Lord rushed powerfully upon the shepherd boy. The calm air around them trembled with holy proclamation, a quiet but profound moment forever capturing the essence of divine selection. Yet, as excitement filled the air, David returned to the fields, blissfully unaware of the challenges ahead. Perils lurked in the shadows as jealousy brewed in King Saul's heart, unbeknownst to him. His humble life was just a prelude. Extraordinary trials awaited to test his faith, courage, and resolve. Before we continue with this incredible biblical account, I want to make sure you don't miss any of these powerful stories from Scripture. Hit the bell icon and select all notifications. These biblical narratives have transformed countless lives throughout history. If God's word through this story is blessing you, please like and share it with someone who needs to hear about God's faithfulness today. Tell me in the comments, which biblical story has most impacted your faith journey? I'm always amazed by how God's word speaks to hearts across generations. Now let's continue with what the Lord did next. In the distance, a thunderous roar echoed across the valley, reverberating off the hills, a giant's challenge that would soon demand David's courage unlike ever before. As fear settled in the hearts of Israel's warriors, the question loomed large. Would David, the boy with faith as small as a mustard seed, rise to meet this challenge? The fate of Israel hung precariously in the balance as David stood, innocent yet destined, gazing toward his future. And it came to pass that the armies of Israel faced an insurmountable challenge. For at the valley of Elah stood Goliath, the Philistine giant whose voice thundered like the rumble of storm clouds, calling upon the men of Israel to provide a champion to fight him. "Choose a man for yourselves, and let him come down to me. If he is able to fight with me and kill me, then we will be your servants. But if I prevail against him and kill him, then you shall be our servants and serve us." His words stung like arrows to the hearts of the Israelites, paralyzing them with fear. David, who had returned to the battlefield at the behest of his father to bring provisions to his brothers, heard the blasphemous challenge of the giant. The cries of Goliath ignited a fire within him, a stirring that beckoned to the courage bestowed upon him by the Spirit of the Lord. In the midst of the trembling soldiers, David spoke to the men who stood nearby. What shall be done for the man who kills this Philistine and takes away the reproach from Israel? For who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God? His words, small yet bold, drew the attention of those around him, murmurs of disbelief and surprise rising among them. When Eliab, his elder brother, heard David's confident inquiry, he rebuked him, saying, "Why have you come down here? With whom have you left those few sheep in the wilderness? I know your pride and the insolence of your heart, for you have come down to see the battle." Yet David's spirit remained undaunted, for he responded, "What have I done now? Is there not a cause?" Word of his determination reached King Saul, and David was summoned before him. The king looked upon the youth, noticing his youthful face and slight stature. "You are not able to go against this Philistine to fight with him, for you are a youth, and he a man of war from his youth," Saul declared, doubt flickering like a candle before the wind. But David insisted, "Your servant used to keep his father's sheep, and when a lion or a bear came and took a lamb out of the flock, I went out after it and struck it, and delivered the lamb from its mouth. And when it arose against me, I caught it by its beard and struck it and killed it. Your servant has killed both lion and bear, and this uncircumcised Philistine will be like one of them, seeing he has defied the armies of the living God." Saul's heart began to soften as he heard the testimony of David's faith and experience. "Go," Saul responded after a pause, "and the Lord be with you." Yet, first he clothed David in his armor, but when David donned the heavy metal, he found it burdensome and restrictive. Instead, he chose to take only his staff, 5 smooth stones from the brook, and his trusty sling, a humble weapon, but one that had been strengthened by faith. The armies of Israel watched, their hopes resting on the shoulders of this unlikely warrior as he marched forward, unafraid to face the tallest giant. As David approached Goliath, the air thickened with tension. The giant bellowed, "Am I a dog, that you come to me with sticks?" In response, David echoed with boldness the words of the Almighty. "You come to me with a sword, with a spear, and with a javelin, but I come to you in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. This day the Lord will deliver you into my hand." As the giant advanced, David flung one of his stones with divinely guided precision, striking Goliath in the forehead. The Titan stumbled and fell with a deafening crash, leaving silence in his wake. And so, with the fall of the giant, victory breathed life into the hopes of Israel. They erupted in joyous praise. Yet, unbeknownst to them, David's incredible journey was just beginning, as God's sovereign plan unfolded toward a destiny greater than any could imagine. For the Lord had chosen David not only to defeat giants, but to unite a kingdom, heal a fractured nation, and lead his people back to their covenant promises. And even in the shadows, a deeper mystery loomed, for the whisper of God's purpose echoed in the hearts of those who prepared for the ascent, saying, "What greater battles await the one anointed by the Lord?" And it came to pass that, as Goliath lay defeated upon the ground, the roar of triumph from the armies of Israel pierced the heavens. The men of war charged forward, their spirits ignited by the miraculous victory wrought by the hands of the shepherd boy. "David! David!" they shouted, their voices rising in exultation, for they saw the hand of the Lord upon him. David, filled with unyielding faith, turned to the fallen giant, stepping over him with conviction. As he stood amidst the cheers, the prophet Samue quietly watched from a distance, for he had been sent by the Lord to Israel's people to seek a king among them. He sensed that a pivotal moment had unfolded in the annals of God's chosen servant. Meanwhile, the Philistines, filled with dread at the sight of their champion's impending doom, fled in panic before the Israelites. The Israelites pursued them relentlessly, their spirits buoyed by the promise of victory, reclaiming the land that had been besieged. Each battle cry echoed the name of the Lord, resounding in the hills of Judah, but within David's heart, the weight of this victory bore a deeper significance. He remembered the anointing he had received from Samuel, the oil flowing over his head, and the solemn proclamation that he would rise to rule. Unbeknownst to those around him, he felt the stirring of responsibility growing alongside his triumph. As day turned into evening and the sun dipped low upon the horizon, David returned to King Saul, who awaited him with a mixture of relief and astonishment. "Whose son are you, young man?" asked Saul, still reeling from the unexpected turn of events. "I am the son of your servant Jesse, the Bethlehemite," David humbly replied, for he understood that he stood not on his own merit, but by the grace of the Almighty. With victory fresh upon their lips, the people began to sing, "Saul has slain his thousands, and David his 10,000s." This new chant grew among the women of Israel, weaving through the celebration like wildfire. But Saul, perceiving the singling out of David, felt a dark cloud settle upon him. Jealousy and fear lodged deep within his heart, as he considered the implications of David's rising fame. In the days that followed, David served in the court, playing his harp to soothe the troubled spirit of Saul. Yet the tensions brewed beneath the surface. The light of David's favor with the people loomed heavy upon Saul, disrupting the peace within his heart. Unbeknownst to David, danger lurked in the shadows, for the heart of man is deceitful above all things. Then one fateful day, as David played before Saul, a tormenting spirit surged through the king. Consumed with rage and fear, Saul hurled his spear at David, seeking to end what he could not control. David ducked aside, narrowly escaping the king's wrath. Thus, from that moment, he knew his future would no longer be safe within the walls of the palace. The Lord's whisper rang true in David's ears, "Get thee unto the wilderness, for I shall prepare you in the secret place." And so it was that David mustered the loyalty of a band of men, warriors and outcasts alike, uniting with them in a covenant bond of brotherhood, while Elijah's voice echoed across the hills, saying, "He who is faithful in little will be entrusted with much." As David treaded the path ahead, his heart burned with a question that lingered in the air. What trials must I endure to fulfill the promises spoken over my life? Such darkness loomed ahead, yet the light of God's sovereignty remained, guiding his every step. Unbeknownst to those in the shadows, a divine orchestration was underway, for the Lord had chosen David to face not only the giants of the land, but the very giants within the hearts of men. And thus the story of David would unfold, revealing a destiny not only for himself, but for a nation that would look upon him as their king and shepherd, leading them back to the heart of God. What battles of the Spirit lie ahead as the anointed man learns to wield not only a sling, but the very wisdom of heaven. And it came to pass that David, retreating into the wilderness, found refuge in the rugged hills of Judah. There, the whisper of the wind through the trees carried voices of his band, who rallied to his side, loyal and steadfast. Each man who joined him bore the weight of his own burden, seeking hope in a world marred by conflict. With every dawn, David rose to seek the face of the Lord. He would pray, asking guidance for the path ahead, as the sun painted the sky in hues of gold. "O Lord, my rock and my refuge," he cried, "lead me into your truth and teach me, for you are the God of my salvation." In the stillness of the wilderness, where the beasts roamed and shadows danced, David found solace in melodies. His harp became the vessel through which his soul poured forth praises to the Almighty. The songs were filled with lament and bold declarations of faith, for he understood that the wilderness was not merely a place of exile, but a forge where character was shaped. As days turned into weeks, news of Saul's increasing madness trickled through the land. Jealousy consumed the king like a cancer, and the shadow of his spear loomed large over David's thoughts. Yet amidst the turmoil, the divine purpose of God rested upon David, hidden yet manifesting through trials that sown fortitude in his heart. One fateful evening, as the stars twinkled in the indigo sky, a flicker of flame arose in the distance. It was the encampment of the Philistines once more, gathering their forces for war against Israel. David, sensing the urgency of the moment, called his warriors, saying, "Let us go forth and seek the honor of our people. The Lord who delivered us from Goliath shall empower us again." Each man, heart burning with resolve, answered the call. They marched forth in unison, following David's lead, whose heart remained fixed on the Lord. As they approached the enemy lines, David inquired of God, "Shall I go up against the Pharisees?" And the Lord spoke to him affirmatively, granting assurance that victory lay ahead. The battle was fierce, and the cries of men echoed through the valleys. Yet David, emboldened by faith, led his men, striking down adversaries, responding to the call that had first echoed in his heart amidst the pastures of his youth. God was with them, and in the midst of the struggle, the truth found voice that the battle belongs to the Lord. As the sun set that day, David and his men stood victorious, the Philistines turning in flight. The valor and courage displayed struck awe into the hearts of those who witnessed the overcoming triumph. Songs were sung of David's leadership, reminding the nation that Yahweh fights for his own. Yet, as the victory songs thundered through the air, David discerned the undercurrent of his fate. The people's hearts were turning towards him, and within King Saul, a storm brewed that would soon come to bear. But herein lay the mystery of providence. God was preparing a king in the wilderness. David would learn not only the art of battle but the heart of worship, shaping him into the sovereign Israel needed. What divine encounters awaited him in the shadows? What lessons of grace and trust would he uncover in the depths of despair? Thus, the battle was won, but the war for David's destiny was just beginning, veiled in the glory and sovereignty of the Most High. And it came to pass that after the victory over the Philistines, David returned to his refuge in the wilderness, but the weight of his destiny pressed upon him heavier than before. The cheers of triumph that once filled the air now intertwined with the whispers of uncertainty, for the shadow of King Saul loomed ever larger. In the stillness of the night, David sought the Lord in prayer, his heart troubled yet resolute. "O Lord, my soul longs for you," he called out. "Will you forsake your servant in this hour of need? What shall I do when the king hunts me as a hare in the field?" His voice echoed in the silence, seeking solace from the God who had anointed him. As dawn broke upon the horizon, a messenger approached, his face marked with fear. "David, news travels swiftly," he said, breathless. "Saul has roused the army of Israel against you. His wrath is fierce, and he wishes to end your life." A solemn heaviness settled in the hearts of David's men, yet he, standing firm, lifted his voice unto the Lord. "Fear not, for our God is our deliverer. Let us seek respite in the secret places where we can hear the voice of the Lord." They retreated deep into the wilderness, where thickets cloaked their presence, and the ground shielded their movements. Days turned to nights, and David continued to seek God's counsel. One evening, as the sun dipped low, casting a kaleidoscope of colors over the valley, David was led into a deeper communion with the Lord. He sang a new song, a song born from a heart of desperation, yet filled with hope. "From the ends of the earth I call to you, when my heart is faint. Lead me to the rock that is higher than I." Psalm 61 verse 2. In that sacred time, the Spirit of the Lord fell upon him, granting visions of his future, revelations murmuring of a kingdom both rich and glorious. Yet, the road was wrought with trials, for he would face betrayals and heartaches that would test the very fabric of his faith. As the eve of confrontation drew near, David's troops grew restless, their loyalty wavering under the weight of their circumstances. To rally their spirits, David spoke earnestly, recounting the tales of God's faithfulness. "Remember how the Lord delivered us from the lion and the bear. He was with us against Goliath. Our God, who leads us, shall not abandon us now." His words ignited a flicker of courage within the hearts of those assembled. Warriors lifted their heads, and amidst them, a fire began to burn anew. But unknown to David, deep within the heart of Saul, jealousy roared like a tempest. The king, blinded by rage and fear, sought out counsel from the sorceress of Endor, invoking dark powers to regain the strength he perceived lost. "Bring up for me the spirit of Samue," Saul demanded, trembling at the sight of his failing kingdom, unaware that the very act would lead to his undoing. And thus, as David strived for his purpose, a divine clash of destinies approached. With every turn, the hand of God was at work, setting the stage for the great unfolding of his plan. The king that would arise from the wilderness was destined not merely for battle, but to establish a covenant that would echo through the ages. But behold, what further trials lay ahead for the one anointed to lead. What movements would come from the darkened heart of Saul, now deep in desperate pursuit? The answers were entwined in the mysterious weave of divine providence, waiting to be revealed. As the night deepened, David and his men, vigilant and prayerful, formed a circle beneath the starlit sky, eager to hear from the Lord. David, burdened yet steadfast, lifted his hands toward heaven and cried, O God of Israel, thou art my hope. Deliver me from the hand of Saul, and let not the wicked prevail over the righteous. With his heart aflame, David sought wisdom from the Lord. In the humble shadows of the wilderness, he felt the stirring of the Spirit as a gentle breeze whispered through the trees, guiding his thoughts. I will not fear the arrows that fly by day, nor the pestilence that walks in darkness, for thou art my refuge. Psalm 91 verses 5-6. Amidst the fervent prayers, a voice cried out from within their ranks. Abishai, fiery and bold, proclaimed, See, David, we are surrounded by the mountains as the city of Jerusalem. If we draw near the cliffs, we shall have the advantage of our position. David, attuned to both the path of the Spirit and the strategy of man, recognized the wisdom of his commander. So shall it be, he answered. Our feet shall find solid ground, as the Lord is our stronghold. The men moved forward, meticulously finding their way through the rugged terrain, with a determination born from faith. Unbeknownst to them, Saul's pursuit grew more frantic. The king was desperate, for his heart shadowed by despair. Throughout the land, the whispers of Samuel's ghost haunted him. The prophet's words echoed, For the Lord has departed from you and become your enemy. 1 Samuel 28 verse 16. In anguish, Saul commanded his men, Seek every crag and slope. Capture David, for I will not rest until he is brought to me. As David and his men situated themselves in the cliffs, they paused to survey the land before them. There, a remnant of hope settled upon David's spirit. He remembered the covenant God had made, stirring his resolve. The Lord has chosen us for victory, for his plans are good and not for evil, to give us a future and a hope. Jeremiah 29 verse 11. In prayer, David reflected on God's faithfulness, recalling the anointing of Samuel. He lifted a psalm unto the Lord, filled with trust and longing. As the deer pants for the streams of water, so my soul pants for you, O God. My soul thirsts for God, for the living God. Psalm 42 verses 1-2. The hearts of his men were stirred as they listened, bound by the unity of faith. Yet, shadows thickened around Saul. Enveloped in darkness, he plunged deeper into his despair. Seeking validation of his frailty, he ordered the sorceress to call forth once more the great prophet. What shall I do? Will I not fall into the hands of my enemies? He trembled, seeking solace from the very darkness he had embraced. The desert winds began to shift, carrying whispers of destiny. David, standing on the precipice of promise, suddenly felt a change in the air. We must act swiftly, he urged to his men, for the time is near. We are to be led into the fulfillment of God's purpose. But the path ahead remained fraught with uncertainty and peril, as Saul's heart grew desperate. For the Lord has turned his face away from me, Saul lamented, shattering the last remnants of his spirit. His pursuit of David began to take on a frantic fervor, each passing moment amplifying the imminent clash, and thus, as the righteous fled and the wicked pursued, the stage was set for a momentous confrontation. What would be the final act of the forsaken king? Would David emerge victorious, or would the darkness swallow him whole? The tapestry of divine providence was being woven, heralding a revelation that none could foresee. Lo and behold, the tale of David and Saul was but a fragment in the grand design of God. For as heaven held its breath, the clash of the anointed would signal more than mere conflict. It would unveil the unfolding of a kingdom destined for glory and grace. And who would rise to be the true shepherd of Israel, established in the lineage foretold from ages past? The answers were inscribed in the eternal heart of God, waiting to breathe life into their contest of fate. As dawn broke over the horizon, casting a golden hue upon the rugged landscape, David gathered his men once more, their faces etched with resolve and trepidation. They paused in solemn unity, their hearts attuned to the Lord's presence. With a fervent spirit, David cried out, O Lord, my strength and my fortress, stand with us this day. Show forth thy mighty hand, that we may witness thy salvation. The men, emboldened by their leader's prayer, gripped their weapons tightly, yet their eyes searched the skies, longing for a sign. Amidst them stood Abishai, resolute and steady, his heart burning with courage. "Shall we not venture forth and confront Saul?" he urged. "For the Lord our God fights with us." David pondered deeply, his mind racing through the possibilities. "We must not act rashly," he replied, weighing his words. "The Lord has not called us to a battle of bloodshed, but to reveal his glory and sovereignty in all things." In that intimate moment, the Spirit of the Lord came upon David, imparting wisdom like the morning dew. He recounted the moments of God's steadfast love, recalling how he had delivered Israel from the hand of Pharaoh and provided for them in the wilderness. "We must trust in the divine purpose," David proclaimed with renewed vigor. "For it is written, 'The battle is the Lord's.'" 1 Samuel 17 verse 47. Meanwhile, Saul, blind to the beauty of God's plan, trudged through the wilderness with disheartened men who mirrored his own fear. "Where is this David?" he roared into the wind, frustration boiling in his heart. "I shall not rest until I hold his head in my hand. I will be vindicated." His voice echoed against the rocks, betraying the doubt that gnawed at his soul. That as the day unfolded, strange occurrences began to transpire. Certain of Saul's men, weary and lost in despair, began to turn against him, whispering among themselves, "Is it not David, who prayed for us and sought peace, that we should pursue?" They pondered, "What good can come of this slaughtering of the innocent?" But Saul, deaf to their counsel, pressed on with the madness of a man possessed. He sought the wisdom of the wizards, drowning himself further into shadows. "Let me know what I must do," he insisted to the sorceress. "Am I not the anointed king?" Yet, the very air crackled with divine tension, heralding a shift. In the cliffs where David and his men stood watch, an eerie stillness wrapped around them. David felt the weight of something profound and holy about to occur. "Can you feel it?" he whispered to his men, a spark of recognition passing between them. "The Lord is on the move." Greatly aware of the impending clash, David's heart lifted as he spotted movement in the distance. There, through the valley's mouth, appeared Saul's advancing forces, the sun glinting off their armor. "Now is the time," David urged. "Let us prepare our hearts and pray. Let us silence our fear with praise." With voices raised in song, they began to chant the glories of their God, their faith swelling as one. "Praise be to the Lord, for his love endures forever," they declared, and the mountains echoed back their hymn. Yet in the hallowed place, where faith met understanding, David felt a tug of destiny pulling within him. Could it be that today resolves more than our struggle? He mused, glancing skyward. Could this showdown be a harbinger of hope for all Israel? A turning point of despair to victory? As the time drew near for the clash of the anointed, the heavens aligned with the heart of God. What was this plan unfolding before them, veiled to human eyes, yet shimmering with the promise of redemption? The moment of reckoning was at hand, calling forth the very essence of their faith. "As thy will be done," so the covenant would unfurl, revealing a shepherd's heart to lead a nation, a lineage, an everlasting promise forged in the flames of divine purpose. As the dust of the valley began to swirl beneath the feet of the encroaching army, David's heart pounded with both fear and faith. He turned to his men, their faces illuminated by the dawn of hope illuminating their souls. "Remember who we are," he said, his voice steady and firm. "We are the remnant of Israel, chosen by God's hand. He has not abandoned us, nor will he leave us in this hour." Abishai stepped forward, a fire igniting within his gaze. "Let us meet this enemy, O king. The Lord has delivered our foes into our hands time and time again. Is this not the moment we have waited for?" His boldness stirred the hearts of the men, a palpable energy dancing among them as they murmured their agreement. Yet David raised a hand, urging the men to silence. "It is not for our glory, nor for our vengeance that we rise, but for his name's sake," he proclaimed, a deep conviction settling upon him. "Let us go forth bearing the banner of peace, for the Lord fights our battles." We must demonstrate to Saul that the ever-present mercy of our God prevails against all hate and folly. In that moment of resolve, as the sun fully ascended, casting brilliant light upon the valley, David turned to the Lord in prayer. "If it be your will, O God, let our paths cross as you desire. Prepare our hearts to see not an enemy, but a brother lost in darkness. Meanwhile, Saul's camp bristled with confusion. Shadows of doubt flitted across the faces of his men. What if David is not our foe? What if we are the wicked in this pursuit? One soldier murmured, glancing at Saul, who raged at the very air around him. Can we not relent? Is there no way to seek peace? But Saul's fury preferred darkness, for he saw only betrayal in his reflections. To seek peace with David is to embrace ruin. He roared, his spirit twisting under the pressures of fear and pride. As he turned back to his men, a heavy silence fell upon them, the seeds of doubt taking root in their hearts. In the meantime, David led his men down the slope, each step echoing a prayer of unity and purpose. Suddenly, the air shifted, pulsating with tension as the opposing armies drew near. David sensed a moment of clarity descending from the heavens. "We shall not fight with swords today," he declared, feeling the spirit quicken within him. "Let us approach them with the words of the Lord. We shall proclaim his truth." His call was met with confusion yet trust. His men rallied behind their king with unyielding faith. As they descended the final hillock that separated them from Saul's beleaguered army, David lifted his voice, breaking the ominous hush. "Saul, why do you pursue me as if I were a fugitive? What harm have I done? Is it not the Lord who has anointed you and given you the crown?" Saul, caught off guard by the suddenness of David's presence, halted his men, their weapons resting limply at their sides. The words of David echoed in the valley, causing ripples of reflection among those who heard. "Behold the mercy of God. Do I stand before you as a man seeking revenge?" David implored, his pleas a mixture of sorrow and hope. As silence enveloped the valley, the eyes of men flickered back and forth between Saul and David, the atmosphere laden with prophetic tension. It was a moment steeped in grace, a chance for Saul to grasp the mercy he had long forsaken. David's heart raced, knowing that the resolution of the day rested not only on the present conflict, but on the broader canvas of divine redemption yet to be written. "O Lord, may this encounter be etched in the annals of our history," he prayed silently, looking not just for a physical victory, but for the healing of a king's estranged heart. In that charged moment, the hand of providence was at work, revealing the unfathomable depths of God's sovereign plan. What would it take for Saul to see the light? What path would be traced through the shadows of this conflict now looming over Israel? As the dust settled, the purpose of the covenant moved towards fruition, binding David's future to a conflict yet unseen, echoing the promise of a Messiah who would emerge from the lineage of a shepherd's heart. As the valley lay silent, a stillness befell the hearts of both armies. The air was thick with awaiting uncertainty, and every eye was upon Saul, who vacillated between wrath and reason. David, emboldened by the Spirit, took a step forward, urging those around him to listen closely. "O King," he called, words trembling with fervor, "let us not allow hatred to blind us from our shared heritage. Are we not both sons of Israel?" Saul's gaze wavered, his expression a tempest of conflict. The echoes of his title weighed heavily upon him, and he glanced at the faces of his men, each one searching for a glimpse of hope. "David," he barked, though the fury in his voice sounded hollow, "you speak as though you would have me believe that a bond remains between us after all that has passed." "Yes, my lord." David's voice rang out with passionate conviction. "The bond remains, cemented by our God. He remembers his covenant with our forefathers. I come not to take your crown, nor to rise against you, but to stand as a brother to remind you of the grace that has been set before us." At this, a murmur rippled through Saul's ranks. The soldiers exchanged uneasy glances, caught in the pull of David's passionate plea. Perhaps there was truth in David's words. The shadow of doubt growing in Saul's heart could no longer be ignored. How long would he chase a phantom if reconciliation lay within reach? In this vulnerable moment, the armor of pride that encased Saul slowly fractured. Memories flooded his mind when the Spirit of the Lord had once filled him, when the joys of divine guidance had painted his reign with victories and peace. Yet still, fear gripped him tightly. How could he let go of the past? David, sensing the poignant shift, continued, "Do not let your heart be hardened, O King. Behold the very hand of God in this hour, for even now he offers you a chance at repentance and salvation. Lay down your spear, and let us unite against the true enemy that seeks to steal our joy." Saul's chest heaved with emotion, his grip on his sword slackened. Where once stood a fierce adversary, a flicker of understanding glowed within him. "Am I to trust you after all?" he murmured, voice laden with vulnerability. "What if this is a trap?" David took another brave step, feeling the weight of countless prayers enveloping him. "The Lord is my witness, my intentions are pure. Let us offer him our surrender, a sacrifice of unity. For if we are to protect the nation we both love, it must begin with mending the wounds between us." And then something unexpected transpired. A profound peace descended, as if the heavens acknowledged the earnestness of David's heart. Saul's expression softened, his defenses lowered like the fading sun beneath the horizon. In that sacred moment, he turned to his men, urging them to sheath their swords in somber reflection. "Let it be, then," Saul finally declared, his voice a mere whisper, yet filled with conviction. "Let us see what the Lord desires in this encounter." David rejoiced silently, knowing that this could be a turning point not just for his own future, but for all of Israel. As the tension doused with tentative hope, a divine thread weaved through their conflict, one that pointed towards a greater design of unity, restoration, and the unfolding of God's redemptive plan. But as both kings stood on the precipice of reconciliation, a stirring in the shadows shifted, reminding them of the greater battle yet to come. "What lies ahead, O Lord?" David pondered inwardly, as the horizon darkened with the unknown. Thus, a new chapter of God's sovereignty began to unfurl, hinting at a destiny intertwined in an eternal struggle, where mercy encounters wrath, and the dawn of redemption hung in the balance. What great divine spectacle awaited beyond this clash of hearts? As the sun set behind the hills, casting an orange hue over the valley, a palpable tension hung in the air. David stood before Saul, a shepherd turned leader, a man of God standing before a king lost in fear and darkness. A silence enveloped them, both men caught in the gravity of their choices. As the fate of a nation trembled on the brink of decision, the soldiers of Saul, witnessing the unfolding scene, exchanged anxious glances, their hearts conflicting between loyalty to their king and the compelling words of the young man before him. "Will we let the darkness prevail?" David's heart beat louder than the clamor of swords drawn. "I have not come to harm you, O king. I have come to present unity as God's will for our people." His voice, firm yet gentle, sought to pierce the veil of animosity that had long clouded their shared destiny. Saul's brow furrowed, a maelstrom of emotions swirling within him. The pain of loss and the fear of an uncertain future wrestled within his heart. "You speak of unity, David, yet you have taken my throne," he exclaimed, the bitterness creeping into his tone as the shadows of the past loomed large. "But my desire is not for a throne, but for the good of Israel," David replied without falter, his eyes unwavering. "The Lord has filled me not to usurp, but to fulfill his promises through mercy and truth. We are brothers. Our fates are intertwined with the covenant sworn to our forefathers." David's words ignited a flicker of hope buried deep within Saul's heart. As the evening breeze rustled through the trees, the atmosphere shifted. Could it be that God still sought restoration within the hearts of the men chosen to lead his people? A murmur rippled through the ranks of Saul's soldiers. One began to voice an echo of David's sentiments. "If we are united, with God as our guide, our battles may be won without bloodshed." A hesitant agreement started to weave among them. Whispers shared among the weary soldiers, glimmers of understanding beginning to form. Saul, trapped in tumult, lifted his gaze towards David, the tension faltering as he faltered in his resolve. "You have shown me mercy when I desired to slay you. Perhaps there is a path to reconciliation." He hesitated, the shadows of doubt clinging to him. "But how can we trust one another after all that has transpired?" "Trust is built on faith," David implored, his voice softening in earnestness. "Let us lay down our swords and yield to the one who called us both to shepherd this great nation. We need not be enemies but co-laborers in his purpose. The Lord's favor does not abandon those who seek his face." In that moment, as the sky darkened with twilight, there came a powerful stillness. An unseen force pulled at their hearts, offering both a weighty challenge and an echo of divine promise. A cosmic heart began to beat, the heart of redemption. Suddenly, a rumble of thunder called through the heavens, purposely obscuring their tumult, triggering the realization that true battles lay not just with flesh and blood, but with unseen powers that strove for the souls of men. David, feeling the weight of this truth, lowered his gaze and lifted his hands. O Lord, may this moment resonate with your divine agenda. Transform this enmity into a testament of your grace. Let us not into conflict, but into victory, into your splendid future. In that flicker of faith, Saul caught a glimpse of something greater than his own ambition. The winds whispered soft promises of hope. Could a heart once hardened be made soft again? With trembling hands, he lowered his sword, the decision echoing louder than words. But in the shadows of the encampment, a more sinister force watched with bitter anticipation. If they unite, all will be lost, a voice hissed, dark and malignant, twisting the very fabric of the air. A faction loyal to Saul's fearful plight began to scheme in the dark corners of the camp. Surreptitious glances exchanged as they listened to David's pleas. They whispered of rebellion and revenge, eager to reignite the flames of animosity. As David and Saul stood on the precipice of reconciliation, clouds brewed ominously in the distance, reflecting not only the tumult of their struggle, but the greater cosmic battle for the souls of Israel and the unfolding divine narrative. The call for unity and God's sovereign plan hung heavy in the air. What unforeseen trials awaited them even as they stood together? What deeper layers of God's purpose awaited revelation, hidden in the shadows cast upon this historic moment? The answers wrapped themselves in the mystery of God's sovereign will, burning ever brighter in the heart of the shepherd king, as walls began to crumble, but danger loomed near, waiting to strike. And thus, the true test of faith may be yet to come. Will the heart of a king yield to reignite hope anew in a nation yearning for peace?